So in the next ceremony, we sit down and we do the ceremony again. We sit and we wait, everyone take one shot, and then we go back to our seat. I asked them to give me a little bit more because for the first trip, I was very like conservative. I didn't want to take too much to avoid any issues or anything. And when I sort of had experience that I wasn't dying, it sort of made me think, okay, I can take a little bit more. That was my worst year, was dying for the first trip. I was actually quite paranoid about it.
I could imagine.
So then, yeah. Also, I saw one documentary on Netflix where there is like one person that's actually dying in the documentary. I'm like, shit.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, but then the second ceremony, we're sitting there, we take the ayahuasca, take a little bit more than last time. We go and we sit down. And in this time where we're sitting down, like there's no one talking. It's just like very, very quiet because people are sort of in their own experience and really waiting for the shamans to initiate the ceremony. And in this time, for me at least, there was a little bit of time where I started feeling the effect before the shamans, they started singing. And in this time, it was very weird that I was sort of like in this place of nothing. Like when you're going through the trip, usually it's very recommended at least that you have your eyes closed because the visuals is not, you can have visuals like outside as well, but it's like an internal experience. So I even had like a what do you call it, like an eye band or something, like to cover my eyes, so that I would just have my eyes closed and I could focus on myself. And it was weird to experience, but like this sort of, when I had my eyes closed, it was literally like I was sitting in the middle of nothing. Like I was just sitting in empty space with blackness all around me, just in a black sort of nothingness. There was nothing beneath me, nothing above me, nothing around me, just empty. And it was very, very beautiful. Then when the shamans, they started singing, it was lighting up the entire room inside my head. It's like a visually inside my head, I could see the location where the singing was coming from. And the singing was sort of this rainbow colored spiral that was turning and going like upwards in a spiral, like of all colors, like incredibly beautiful and colorful. And as it was going up, it was like lighting up everything around it. And I felt like suddenly the nothingness was gone and there was like a warm sensation. And the shamans, we had 4 shamans, and I thought it was a joke at first. They told me that the shamans, they're singing their own songs, so they're not singing like different song independently of each other. And the songs that they're singing is, when you first hear it, it sounds like people screaming. Some of them is I thought it was horrible, but then as you experience it, and if you have pleasant experiences, probably then the songs become quite enjoyable actually. And for me, and what the other people also told me, is that when you focus in on it, you can sort of focus in on one song, and then it's like the others, they sort of fade into the background and you don't experience them. And I remember feeling that when the effects started kicking in, it was almost as if if we imagined like my mind was like spinning around when it was working, like a disc or something. It started spinning like 1,000 times faster, and I could feel like it was heating up, almost like a computer that was like overclocking or something, you know. Really felt like it was spinning, and as it was like spinning and intensifying, it felt like my ability to focus was 1,000x as well. And everything that I would focus on, it was sort of, my mind was sort of zooming in and expanding it, almost like a microscope. So this is what I was experiencing. As I was focusing on the singing of the shamans, my mind was sort of drifting into it. And I would describe it as very similar to the meditation process, at least when you have like a very good experience, where it's sort of like it's not that you have to like concentrate on something, but more that you have to relax yourself to let the rest of the world drift away from what you're really trying to focus on, if that makes sense. And as I was doing that, I was like really like it was like you were just scroll, like when you zoom on your computer, you're scrolling into something. It's really like it was just like expanding and like zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. Um, and as I was zooming in, eventually I got to this place where I was sort of seeing like, I don't know how to describe it, if I would describe it as universe or as worlds, but it was sort of like I could see this like almost screen of like different worlds that was like spinning around each other, with like they were like divided in the middle, like almost like with a plus sign, and then you had one here, one here, one here, one here, and then they were sort of like spinning around.
Yeah.
And it's not that I really could choose anything, but it was more that I was sort of like fading into one of them. And as I was fading into one of them, there are some parts of this that I don't fully remember, and then some other parts that I remember quite fully.
Mm.
It did feel like I had to let my brain go away so that I could experience things. And the more I used my brain, the less I could actually experience.
Mm.
But as I was zooming in, as I remember, I was meeting a guide, and the people that experience shaman, they often, or ayahuasca, they often refer to it as like a female spirit guide, sort of. They
Mm-hmm.
always give her the gender of the female. And I sort of remember experiencing and understanding why in that moment, and experiencing it as a snake, which they often also refer to, because the vine of ayahuasca is like a vine that's spinning around. So is often symbolized by the snake. And I
Mm.
remember meeting this green snake female spirit that sort of was guiding me. And as I was zooming in more and more, the next thing was that I got to a place with blackness and then some green gates, like neon colored green, that was opening for me, sort of in a sense to invite me in, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And as I drift further into that, I suddenly end up, and in the moment it was not uncomfortable, but after thinking back to it, it was super uncomfortable for me because it was so confrontational to my idea of the world before. I experienced being in a different place altogether, like a place where I would not be able to say, I would not be able to give the place any similarities to this world that I know now. Like from this world to that world, there was very, very few things that would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the space of there there didn't exist like physical space. So like how I can say like I'm sitting here and there is a place in front of me as well, and a place behind me and above me and below me. Like that was not something that existed there. There wasn't like 3 dimensions.
Mm.
And I just experienced like encountering these beings that just appeared in front of me, that were sort of like dragon-ish, snake-ish bodies, that were like spinning around. And I remember them being extremely, extremely powerful, like extremely powerful. And they weren't good or bad, but they were in a sense like very um, prideful, like a
Mm-hmm.
cat almost. And with
Yeah.
the sense of you don't want to fuck with them
Yeah.
because they don't mind fucking you up, but also they don't feel like they have to. Like
No.
it's not, they don't want to fuck you up, but they also don't mind if they have to. In this, like it's a weird sense like that.
So
And
when you
mhm.
say that they were powerful, that was kind of, there was a vibe that you were getting, that these creatures or beings are like, I should not, like you said, fuck with them. They are, or how did
Yeah,
you
like
experience them being powerful?
I guess a little bit similar, like when you see a cat that's walking like confidently, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a little bit like an arrogance, but not entirely arrogance. It's more like it's not concerned about you.
Yeah.
They were a little bit in the same, and the powerfulness, I don't know how to describe it, and I'm not sure how I would know it, but it
Mm.
was just a sense of like
You
like
just
it's
knew.
like yeah, like this is white, and you would ask me why is it white. I don't know, it's just I can just see it's white. I could just
Yeah.
experience that they were powerful, and I wouldn't know why. I would have no
Mm.
clue why, because I didn't see them performing or anything like that. It was more so they just appeared, and it wasn't that they were like extremely welcoming or anything. It was, and they knew that I was there, and it was sort of as if they were just accepting and saying, okay, he's here, he can experience our world, it's okay. And they were they couldn't care less, really. Like they didn't mind, but they also, like, it didn't matter to them neither. And I remember
Wow.
I remember 2 or 3 of them appearing and then going away again. And I wouldn't know how to describe where they appeared, because it was like they were just there in front of me in a weird sense. And it was the strangest thing. And I thought about it a lot, because I remember experiencing that moment, that it was so real that there was no doubt in my mind that it was real. Like, it's like if you're saying to me, are you sleeping? And I would say, I'm not sleeping, I'm quite awake right now. This is the real world. And you would say, how do you know? And I would say, I just know.
Yeah.
It was the same exact feeling. And because I've been thinking a lot in my mind, like, how would I be able to describe if what I saw was true or not? And I would say I just knew that it was. And I couldn't really, I remember trying to understand it with my mind, what it was that I was experiencing, because I wanted to, like, okay, is it this? Is it that? Is it, what is it?
While
And I
you were
couldn't.
experiencing it or afterwards?
Yeah, a little bit wild, but then it quickly appeared to me that the more I was trying to understand it with my mind, it like my using my mind took me away from it. Like, it was, my awareness was not where it should be when I was trying to use my mind to understand it. Um, and in that place as well, like, time didn't exist at all. I forgot about time, in the sense that so I could try to understand it with my mind, even though I was unable to understand it. And then I could go back to it a little bit, but I, like, thoughts like time and will this experience go away, that was not something that I could think about at the same time. Like, it was not something that I had any focus on or any awareness of. Like, it didn't exist to me in that moment.